You're listening to the SKYLIT Books podcast. We're an independent, general interest bookstore putting great reads in the hands of people in the Los Feliz neighborhood of Los Angeles. Hosted by resident Skylighters, we're here to bring you new and exciting author conversations, group reads, and bookseller chats. Happy listening. Hello, lovely listeners, and welcome back to the SKYLIT Books podcast. I'm your host, Natalie, and today we are so excited to welcome Summer Michaud-Skog to talk about her new book, Fat Girls Hiking, an inclusive guide to getting outdoors at any size or ability. Summer Michaud-Skog is the founder of Fat Girls Hiking, a hiking community centered on a body-positive mission to get folks of diverse backgrounds out on trails no matter their size, ability, or experience level. With more than 24,000 Instagram followers and 29 and counting official chapters across the country, FGH continues to grow by the day. Trails, not scales is their motto, and it's all powered by Summer's grassroots efforts, tireless work ethic, and gregarious, welcoming attitude. Not only is Summer a self-starting leader of a vital community, she also holds a degree in creative writing and is a photographer in her spare time. Thanks so much for being here, Summer.
Thank you for having me. This is awesome.
I'm so excited to chat with you. Did you want to start by reading us a little something from the book?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm going to read 3 short sections from the chapter Body Liberation in Nature, The Power of Words. I have been called fat for most of my life. The first time I can remember was in elementary school. 3 girls always picked on me for how I looked and what clothes I wore. One weekend, I got a perm at my grandma's house. It was the 80s, kids got perms. And I was excited to go back to school with my new look. In gym class, the first day back, we played volleyball or dodgeball or some game with a ball. And one of the girls said to another, "Ha, look at Summer. She looks like Shirley Temple." The other girl responded, "No, she's too fat to be Shirley Temple. She looks like Medusa." They called me Medusa for years after that. It stung. I was so ashamed. From a very young age, girls are told both implicitly and explicitly that the way we look is something people can use to harm, discredit, and shame us. Society bases our value, worth, and personal security on how attractive or pleasant we look to others. It places value on our bodies according to how they conform to arbitrary aesthetics and functionality. Diet culture is a system of beliefs that values thinness as an ideal body type and encourages weight loss, disordered eating, and exercise to achieve the idolized body type by any means. It affects every facet of our society and is upheld by the systems of oppression woven into that fabric, including white supremacy, patriarchy, colonial standards of beauty, capitalism, gender norms, and cis heteronormativity. Diet culture is steeped in ableism, classism, racism, sexism, and shame, and it equates thinness to a person's moral value. Whew, that's a lot. I'm going to go on to another section in the same chapter. My formative years were difficult at times, but they gave me strength. I forged a path to body adoration that, without a doubt, led down trails lined with old-growth trees and waterfalls deep in the forests of the Pacific Northwest. I didn't know my body's strength and resilience until I put myself in situations where I had to rely on my intuition, knowledge, and creative problem solving to get my fat body from the trailhead through the woods and to the destination. I learned to trust my body. I learned to trust myself. I spun myself around, head thrown back to look up at the canopy of trees overhead, and much of the shame society placed on my body fell away. I'm fat and I want to be considered a real hiker. When I first began hiking on a regular basis, it seemed like a label I wasn't allowed to claim. Hikers look a certain way, I was told. Hikers have a certain gear, I was told. Hikers traverse a specific landscape, distance, and elevation gain. Even though I went on hikes that challenged me and continued to hike farther than I'd ever gone before, I couldn't be a real hiker because I was fat. Research and knowledge were integral to building my confidence and making me comfortable enough to call myself a hiker. In the beginning, I would see numbers on hike descriptions and not understand what they meant. When I read that a popular Portland hike was 16,000 feet of elevation gain in 2.5 miles, I didn't know what that meant in terms of how steep the hike was or how long it would feel for my fat body with chronic pain. All I knew was that I would do my best, listen to my body, and honor my needs. I would often be sweaty, out of breath, tired, and the slowest person on the trail. But when I made it to the summit or waterfall or whatever my destination was, it always felt like another seed of trust planted within me. The hike back down felt like growth. I would be so happy. I could hear romantic comedy, happy ending music in my mind. I was goofy, silly, chatty, and giddy. These endorphins carried over into my everyday life. My body confidence grew as my hiking confidence grew. I began to crave the outdoors and made places to hike list. No matter where I was, I yearned for the long paths along forest creeks, the color of evergreen trees. It no longer mattered to me what I looked like or what gear I had or what people said about me. The only mirrors in the outdoors are the ones that self-reflect.
Thank you so much for introducing us to this book a little bit. And when I was reading it too, that first like part that you read, I was like, wow, that does feel like a lot, but also no, because that's sometimes our everyday life. So for people who are extremely privileged and don't have to think about those things day in and day out, they're like, wow, this is aggressive. Like, I thought this was a book about hiking. And I'm like, no, like if you're a cis hetero able-bodied male presenting person on a trail, maybe that seems aggressive to you and you're like, I just want to go outside. But if you're anyone else, those are some things you have to think about.
Absolutely. It's so true. It's like what my whole entire work has been. 7 years I've been doing Fat Girls Hiking and writing this book as well. It's like we have different experiences in the outdoors based on who we are and how we identify. And I think it's important to talk about that, and that, people, aside from the like thin, able-bodied cis white men, which is usually what we hear when we hear about hiking. You could Google the word hiking and look at the images, and I've done this recently because I'm like, I wonder if this has changed, and it's like gotten a little better, but it's still like just that type of person, which is absolutely, there's nothing wrong with being that person, right?
Yeah,
absolutely nothing wrong with it, but not everyone is going to connect with that experience because we are all so different, obviously.
And then this project and this sort of experience and community that you've built with Fat Girls Hiking started out on social media, and it was just your way of building a community that you hadn't seen and you wanted to make available to people. And then someone approached you and said, I want to talk about the book you're writing. And you said, what?
I was like, I'm sorry, what book? I think
What
I
book?
casually mentioned like, I'm going to write a book one day, right? Because I've been a writer since I was a child. I have a degree in writing. I write all the time. I love writing. I love books. It's my most favorite thing. And so I remember I was like, went on a road trip to open a bunch of Fat Girls Hiking chapters. And I was like, ooh, I'm going to do research for my book, and find all the best, like accessible for fat people and, queer people. And like, what is, looking through that lens, like what are the good nature places on this road trip that I'm taking? And so I think I mentioned it like once or twice in my Instagram stories. So it wasn't even like this big thing that I made a post about even. It was just like casually in my stories. And then, and then I just got this, it felt pretty random email from this amazing publisher in Portland. And they were like, hey, we would like to meet with you and talk about the book you're writing. So I was like, oh, okay.
Oh.
that would be amazing because, I'm a writer. I like, but yeah,
it was like to write.
It was a surprise. It was a surprise. And people have actually asked me, since I started writing the book, and like, how did that happen? How did you get a book deal or whatever? And I was like, I don't know. Like, I don't know how that happened. They just approached me and I said, sure, let's do this. And I think like, obviously it's a dream come true for me to publish a book. It was like one of my biggest dreams. And I remember when I was in college for writing, one of my professors said to the class, like, it's unlikely that anyone here will ever publish a book. And I understand, like, and I remember just being like very disheartened by that comment. Like,
yeah,
wow, like it felt like kind of like a harsh thing to say. And I understand like why she said it, because I think as a writer, you have to just write because you can't not write. And that is how I feel about writing. It's like my biggest passion. And it's like such a core part of my identity. It's like I always have a notebook and a book to read with me. Like that is like, and a camera, like that is who I am, So anyways, yeah, it just happened, and I met with an editor at Timber Press, and he brought me a stack of free books. So as a person who works in a bookstore, I don't know, a stack of free books about nature. I was like, okay, I'm in. Free books.
I'm in. Yeah, no, that is definitely a perk of the job, that when people bring free books or they show you the shelf and you're like, oh, I can just take those. Okay.
Yes. Books are so great. They're like, someone recently said this, so I'm kind of co-opting what they said, but somebody said, having a book with you is like having a friend with you. And I totally believe that. And maybe I even wrote this in my book, because I mean, it's just like, it's so part of who I am, books, you know? So it kind of made sense to turn what Fat Girls Hiking is into a book, just so people can get a sense of like, you know, what it all is behind the Instagram account. Because yes, that is how it started, but it really is this deep dive into, you know, fat activism and body liberation, and, you know, even like talking about body positivity, because that is really how Fat Girls Hiking started. It was like body positivity was like, had suddenly become this like mainstream thing, and then it's like, you know, kind of just dissecting all of that, like what does that all mean as like a fat activist, and working towards making more inclusive spaces. And like one of my editors at Timber Press said, you know, just think of the book as like a group hike. So when, like, because my favorite thing about Fat Girls Hiking is leading group hikes. I love being with the community. It really like amps me up. Like it really makes me feel so happy to be with other fat people outside, and just like, and knowing that it's a space where like I'm not going to be body shamed or fat shamed by the people that I'm with. I'm not going to be left behind on the trail. Like things that are so that we think that I think a lot of people, unless they've been in that situation, might not think of when they're going to go on a group hike. Like I get emails all the time, people saying like, I want to come. This looks really cool. I'm really interested in learning more about hiking, but I'm worried that I'll be slow, and I don't want to hold anyone back. I don't want to hold the group back, and I don't want to get left behind. And I like, that is a big fear, you know? So it's just like the book is sort of like breaking down all these sort of fears and like curiosities and questions that I think specifically fat people have about getting outside, you know?
And the community aspect of this is so important, because that's what it is. That's how it all started. But I wanted to hear a little bit about the decision to include all of these community profiles in the book, because it seems obvious that it would need to be that. But I think it's also just a very powerful choice on your part to make that a center point of this book, because you could just write it, and that's the thing. Seeing one person doing something gives you the feeling of an ability to do it yourself, or the maybe courage to try it, seeing just one person. But having over a dozen profiles in this book of other people in other places all over the country, like it just opens up that window so much more. And so I'm sure that it was an easy choice on your part, but I'd love to hear about the decision to create these community profiles and how you sort of sourced them. And that kind of leads into telling us a little bit about the ambassadors too, because you talk about how you like very carefully interviewed them and chose them, because it was a big responsibility to leave people in charge of these chapters where you wouldn't be.
Yeah, I mean, so when I, when I first started the Instagram account, like so it started on social media. It was about me and what I was doing and hikes I was going on and things like that. But like it very quickly, I would say less than a year after I started just like posting about like things that me and my girlfriend at the time were doing, people started using the hashtag, and I didn't want it to be about me, like I'm an introvert, which people always deny, but like I'm very like, I like to be alone. I'm kind of shy and I'm an introvert, but yet I am a leader, right? So it's like kind of changing that idea for myself that I could even be a leader, but having the community members, like people, I mean, some of the people in the book I've never met in person. I've just like followed them on social media and, you know, maybe exchange some messages over, you know, DM, and then just, you know, built friendships with them through our shared love of being outside and our experiences as fat people, you know. And we all have different things that make us different from one another. Like, it's not like, you know, fat people are like this monolith and we all have the same experiences. Obviously, like, I'm white, so I have way more privileges than people of color. And like, you know, I can't really speak on that experience because it's not my experience. So I want people I want to uplift people and hear the voices of people who have experiences that are different than mine, but, you know, are also fat and, you know, accessing the outdoors and how they do that, you know, because how I access the outdoors is going to be very different than how someone who uses a wheelchair accesses the outdoor, or like someone like, you know, with chronic illness. Like, we all experience the same thing very differently. And, you know, like you said, I just want to make sure that, like, I want people to see themselves reflected in the book. And I know that just being who I am, people aren't going to necessarily see themselves reflected. So it's really important to me that the focus is on the community, you know, like, I am like, I don't like to be the center of attention. This is like the bottom line. It's like doing all this talking and like, you know, my book and like all this stuff. It makes me uncomfortable, but it is what it is. And I like, am really excited to get the word out about, you know, what the community is and just the work that the outdoor industry, you know, as a whole, as a business, as an entity, the work that they need to do to make people who are in this community feel more welcomed in any space that's in the outdoors, any space that the outdoor industry is. Like, they need to be thinking more about how fat people access these things. So that's really important to me, is having it not be about me. Comfort levels, and because I really want to hear what other people say. I really love people's stories. Like, I think that's just like sort of how the Fat Girls Hiking blog started. I didn't really have a lot of writing on my blog. It mostly was like, I just wanted to, like, you know, after doing some of the group hikes, I you know, would get to know people, obviously, because that's what you do. You just chat, you get to know people, you make friends with the people that you're hiking with. And that is like so amazing. Like, I love connecting with nature. But I love connecting with other people too, and just like learning about them and hearing their stories. And that's really what inspired the original blog. Was I wanted to take this woman that I met on a hike, just the two of us, so I could sort of like ask her questions about, you know, her childhood experiences in the outdoors, and you know, how does she get outside? What does she like to see? What does she like to do? Is there, you know, barriers that she faces? That kind of stuff. And then take photos, because, you know, those are my two things, writing and photography.
Yeah.
So that was sort of like the beginning of the blog, which later turned into the community profiles in the book, was just me asking questions about people's experiences. And your other question was about the ambassadors. Oh man. Yeah. So the ambassadors, you know, I had no idea that I could be a leader. And then I had no idea that I could that this would be an organization when I first started it. I just wanted to hike with people who wouldn't be fat phobic, essentially. Just that was the basic. Okay, cool. But so I started getting emails about people wanting to have group hikes where they lived, and I had no idea how to do that. I had a lot of nervousness and anxiety about how that would even work, you know, logistically. How would that even work? And so I knew that I needed to talk to any person who was going to sort of be like a representative of Fat Girls Hiking. Because there's like so many parts of it that are just like my personality and who I am and how I lead hikes. Like, I know who I am You know, I'm not going to allow like racism or homophobia or transphobia or any type of bigotry in our space. And that is really important to me, online and in person. So I, you know, sort of vet the ambassadors, talk to them on the phone or Zoom or whatever, and get to know them, and you know, just talk to them about who they are and what their experiences have been like, because that's, you know, having people who are like passionate about building community, you know.
Yeah.
And yeah, and it's like, it's been kind of a ride. It's been a little tricky over COVID, to be honest. I have had very low desire to try to do virtual things for Fat Girls Hiking.
Yeah.
And so we're kind of getting back into it, but you know, I'm really proud of the fact that like I was able to, like, with no experience in like building an organization, just kind of like based on my instinct and my intuition, just like built this organization. And, you know, at the most we ever had, we had 37 chapters and some in other countries. Like, I mean, wow, I could say, oh, I have an international organization. Like,
You do.
that's bizarre to me. I'm like, who am I? I'm just like this person who likes to look at leaves and be outside and stuff. So I feel like I'm a reluctant leader, I used to say. I'm like, I don't really want to be the leader, but I guess that I am. So yeah.
But there's something really, not everyone who either wants to be a leader or becomes a leader can so easily like essentially delegate. Like if you're thinking of it as like an infrastructure, that is a beautiful way for things to get done in community, by relinquishing control, which it's not like control. You don't want to control it, but that's what it is. And the ability and like the grace to let it live and run around on its own is so beautiful. And like, I hope that that brings you so much joy, because being able to see it exist in these pages brought me so much joy, to just see someone start something, have a beautiful idea and do it for themselves, and then for it to just like grow legs and wander off on its own trail. Like, I hope that that brings you so much joy, and it looks like it does.
Yeah, it really does. And you're totally right. It's like, I always said that Fat Girls Hiking is my baby. And so I'm very protective of it, which, you know, comes down to the, like, who we bring on as ambassadors and stuff like that. And I feel like I'm just evolving as I go, because I don't really know what I'm doing. And I think that's okay. I think that we need more of that in the world, of people being like, I'm really passionate about this thing. I don't have experience and I don't know how to do it, but I'm going to just go for it. You know, like, I don't think we hear that enough. And I think it's important for people, because, you know, we think about like what success is, you know, and I've had so many people that have interviewed me talk about like, what is success? And I honestly just kind of hate that question, because I think Fat Girls Hiking is successful because it has reached people. And like, I also just hate the word success. Like, I feel like it's just like this expectation.
It feels like an end. Yeah, like there's an end that you're trying to reach, and it's still just, it's going to continue growing and evolving. It's never going to end as long as people are receiving it.
Exactly. And I'm going to keep changing, because I'm always just trying to be the better version of myself. And like, I encourage others to do the same. And I, you know, there's always more that I can do to, you know, whatever, to make the community more, just better for more people. Right. So yeah, I mean, it is a process, and it is like it's not, I think it's the same way when you talk about, when we talk about like, you know, body love or self-love, or, you know, trying to like disentangle from diet culture. It's like, it's not like this easy thing that you just do and one day you're there, and then you're there forever. It's just like a process, just like most things, you know? And I think that we very rarely talk about the process. We almost always talk about like the end result, which I think is like, right, like the book is an end result, right? I love that. And I think it's beautiful. And I'm so, so proud of this book. And I also read it and think like, oh, there's some things that I could have improved. Like there are some things, that, maybe could have been different to make it like more inclusive or better. And that's okay. And I don't think of that as like a failure or a success. I just think of that as like, it is what it is. And it's important that this book exists and that the people in it are telling their stories and that people are listening to their stories and that we give people a voice to talk about things that they love, and how people access the outdoor. It's just so beautiful to me to see all these different people in the book, and it's still very weird for me to see so many pictures of myself. I'm like, oh, I didn't choose the photos. The publisher did. I gave them all the photos. Yeah. And then they kind of chose where they went. And I'm like, oh, wow, that's so cute. That's a very wild outfit you're wearing there. Yep. Great. But I just love that there's different conversations being had about the outdoors and nature and hiking. When I first started Fat Girls Hiking, I read every single book about women hiking. So Wild, of course, is like one of my most favorite. And Cheryl Strait is a Portland writer. So like, I was living in Portland when I started Fat Girls. I was like, are we connected? So I'm like definitely a fan of her writing. But still it was like, it's like cool to hear stories about women hiking and stuff like that, but it still wasn't the same as mine. So I think that this book kind of fills that void that is needed in the hiking section. And I also love that it's not just like a typical hiking book. It's like, because it's me, it's like, this is me in a book form. It's like self-care, right? It's like my childhood trauma, so fun. But like, I went to school, like I really love memoir and like creative nonfiction writing is like my favorite. So yeah, just like, it has all the things that I saw were lacking. It's like the book that I wanted when I first started Fat Girls Hiking. So what a cool thing to have it.
Well,
like,
and I'm sure that everyone that reads will have like a different favorite section. Like I love the whole thing, but and this probably just tells you so much about my personality, but my favorite section is how to hike.
Oh, yay. I love that. Okay.
Because I love I love to research things before I go and do them. I love to camp. So I go camping a lot and I have a pack and I have certain things, but like had the same gear struggles that you talk about in the book. And they're like seeing just a list that covered things that aren't usually covered, or just in general, like that you're not talking about, or people aren't. I've never seen a book that like considers or talks about thigh deodorant, because and non-chafing, like it is like, if you're going to go outdoors and you are a fat person, you're thinking about that.
Yeah, absolutely. And actually my best friend, who is like my right-hand woman with Fat Girls Hiking, she makes this amazing, like we call it chub rub salve, but she makes it in her tiny kitchen and it is the best. And I have like a little one in my pack, but no, totally. Like, there's no list that includes that
No.
in other hiking books. So it's pretty cool to be like, yeah, bring some chub rub salve,
bring some chub rub if you're going outside.
You're gonna want it.
But yeah, I love when I like look at a list, or it's like, what to bring based on where you're going or what you're doing. But especially that I feel like sometimes people will say, like, this is like just a jumping off point, do what you need to do for you. But that is made clear throughout this entire book, that it's like, this is a jumping off point. I think you maybe say that at the beginning of every section. You're like, this is me, listen to your body, do what you need to do. Which there's just such consideration in that there isn't in so many other like guides or books. They are just saying like, if you want to be the best, or you want to go the furthest or do the most, like, here's what you need to do. And this book offered such a different idea of access. And I'm just so glad that it exists.
Thank you so much. I'm so glad it exists too, honestly. It's just like I said, it's a dream. It's a dream come true, honestly. To have this information for people to have, like I've been hearing stories from people who have had the book over the last couple of weeks that it's been out, and someone at REI that works at REI sent me a photo of it on the shelves, and I'm like, REI is carrying my book. That's pretty cool. I don't really promote REI because I don't think that they're very inclusive to fat people, so I'm just like, but I really love that they're carrying my book. And so, maybe somebody who's like in REI being like, oh, their size selection sucks, can be like, whoa, look at this book. I'll buy this instead of, pants that only go to 2X or whatever. So
yeah.
It's the little things. Let's be real.
It's the little things. And then I wanted to, we've talked about, constantly evolving, changing, finding ways to become the best and better versions of ourselves. And I would love to hear if you made any discoveries along the way when you were putting this book together, whether it was a new place that you found while you were driving around and writing, or a new thing that you realized about your hiking practices, and like, just even if it's a little thing here and there, like little discoveries that you made while putting this into book form.
Oh boy. I realized that writing a book is a lot harder than I thought as a first-time author. I just didn't even know what the process was at all. I did some Googling before I signed my book contract, to see, what the deal was. But it was a very long process. Writing a book is a very long process. And I struggle with imposter syndrome and have bad anxiety. So it was really like, for me, it was like constantly being like, reminding myself that I know what I'm talking about, that I have this idea that I'm not an expert, right? Like, what is an expert? It's the same kind of idea of the word success for me. It's like very loaded, expert. And to me, I just kept telling myself, like, what you're talking about, even though like, sometimes it might be a struggle for me to find how to say things. I know what I'm talking about. And it matters. What I'm saying matters, right? My voice matters. The book matters, and it's important. And I think that's like, through the process of writing it was a struggle. I gotta be real. It was a struggle. And maybe that's just like, my mental health stuff that I deal with regardless of what I'm doing, if I'm writing a book or just living my life. But it was a struggle for me, the process. The thing is like, I know myself, and I know that like, even if something's hard, I like have to be really loving to myself. I cry a lot, first of all. And then I'm like just really loving and gentle and kind to myself, and remind myself of who I am, the good things about who I am, and surround myself with amazing community and people and that love me and know me well. And that was like, I don't know what I would have done. I think it's just like, it's a really big struggle, and I just keep doing it anyways, because it's so important to me to give this space, to open up this space to more people, because I really I love the outdoors. I every single day am doing something outside, because it's like so important to my self-care and my healing. Like, I face this oppression in the culture that we live in. Like, I face fat phobia, homophobia, sexism all the time, every day. I see it in, things that I watch on TV. And I, I'm college educated, not that it matters, but I criticize or not criticize is not the right word. I like to analyze these moments within like pop culture that I see. But I also need, and I like that feels like important to me to like, you know, look at how culture affects us personally as individuals. And then I also like need an outlet to shed the oppression, right? To like feel just like a person who's like matters and is important. And for me, that is really like connecting to the outdoors. And I have done it in various ways. I've climbed mountains and, you know, done all the different sorts of activities in the outdoors, but like sometimes it's just as basic as like watching the rain or, you know, putting my bare feet on, you know, wet grass or something, or just like looking closely at a leaf. And that really offers me such healing because it's like a deeper way to connect with myself. And that I think is like, that is something I wasn't expecting, to be honest, when I started Fat Girls Hiking, the connection that I would grow with myself and how nature is such a part of that for me. Just, I don't know. I think it's just like, I love where I live. I love the nature where I live. I'm just obsessed with the Pacific Northwest. And I live on the Oregon coast now. So it's like, I'm 10 minutes from the ocean and, so it's like, I don't know if people, I know I feel like a weirdo, which is fine, proud weirdo. But like just how much I really love nature and how it really gives me so much. And so this is just if I can give people that space to like find their own connection with nature in whatever ways that they need or can, even if it's just like connecting with their houseplants, which is valid and important as well. Then that means a lot to me because our earth needs more people who want to protect it. And our natural spaces need more people to be like, you know, I love this and I don't want it to go away, right? So it's not just the community and it's like this bigger thing, right? It's like start small and then it just grows. And I feel like I'm rambling, which is just how
No.
I'm always like, did I answer your original question?
Yes.
Okay, cool.
Absolutely. And that is a discovery that I know, like it's seen in the book, like that discovery is happening because you asked yourself those questions while you were in those essays that you were putting together. Like those are the questions you're asking yourself. And I hope that everyone who picks this book up is also, because it starts with asking those questions. Like you're not going to find that connection with nature or what you need or what nature could possibly even offer you if you don't ask yourself those questions to begin with. So I hope that everyone who picks this up is able to ask themselves those questions. I know that this book is going in my pack and it's going to stay there as like just a little like hiking Bible to go with me now.
Yay.
And I am so grateful for that. And for all of our listeners, we have copies at SKYLIT Books that you can pick up in store or online. And for everyone listening, my guest again today was Summer Michaud-Skog, and you can get Fat Girls Hiking, an inclusive guide to getting outdoors at any size or ability in stores now. Thanks so much for joining me, Summer.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for listening to the SKYLIT Books podcast series. Please don't forget to visit our website at skylitebooks.com and make sure to follow us on Twitter and Instagram. Also, don't forget to subscribe to this podcast for more author talks and bookseller conversations. You can find us on Podbean, iTunes, and Spotify. Stay safe and healthy, and we hope to see you back in our store soon.